Spoiler alert, if you haven't played the 5.1 Archon quest, please come back after you've played it.
The victors shall burn bright, while the losers must turn to ash.
5.1 Archon quest was absolutely marvelous in their storytelling and how the plot developed. But apart from doing a great job at depicting Natlan's war with the Abyss, Genshin Impact has dropped countless number of lore bombs which answered many questions we've had for quite some time. So without further delay, let's get into each and every new lore we received whilst recapping the Archon quest along the way. But before we begin, allow me to introduce the sponsor for today's video, ldshop.gg. ldshop.gg is a game top-up platform for multiple games like Genshin Impact, Honkai Impact III and Zenless Zone Zero developed by LD Player Emulator Group. Here you can get your premiums and Welkin at lower prices including discounts of 2%, 5% and discount coupons for newly registered users. LD Shop is also 100% safe as all you need to do is input your server and UID and wait a few minutes and voila! Instant premiums. Using LD Shop, apart from great discounts, you can also get your top-up double bonus when you purchase for the first time. And if you register using the link in my description, you will get an additional 5% discount coupon as well. So with LD Shop, you no longer have to worry about farming premiums to pull for Jilonin, who was released on the 9th of this month. So don't just stand there, go check out ldshop.gg right now. Let's start off with the coolest looking character, Moses' brother from Honkai Star Rail, Natlan's very own Batman, Oron. Oron, who was teased in the Natlan teaser and suspected to have been colluding with the Fatui in Act 2 of Natlan's Archon quest, was finally revealed in Act 3. Oron, who belongs to the tribe the Masters of the Nightwind, was found by the members of the tribe as a baby and was practically raised by them. Now the most interesting thing about Oron is that his soul is incomplete and it brings misfortune and illness. As a result of this, the people of his tribe decided to use him as a vessel to bring back souls to the Night Kingdom. This would supposedly help to strengthen the ley lines in the Night Kingdom, but would also result in Oron, the vessel's, death. But then the said ceremony fails and Oron escapes with his life. However, this left in him a feeling that it was his duty to save Natlan by sacrificing his life, and it was this very feeling of his which later led him to work with the captain to save Natlan. Oron is also revealed to be the 5th hero acknowledged by the ancient name Baidai, meaning devotion, and is also the lovable grandson of Citlali or Granny Itly. Although Oron is inspired from the Yoruba god Oloran, who is described as the supreme god of the heavens, he seems to be designed after the Mayan bat god Camazotz, who literally inspired Batman. Coming back to the story, Oron, who decides to help the Fatui, aids in finding an ancient dragon relic called the Source Mechanism. The reason for this is because Capitano believes the Pyro Archon's plan of assembling the 6 heroes is doomed to fail. Employing the use of Fatui intelligence, Capitano also came to know of Mawika's emergency backup plan to save Natlan, which was to use the power of the Pyronosis. But using the Gnosis would come at a great price, as it would drain all souls and memories from the Night Kingdom and weave them into a giant net that would protect the ley lines. Not only would this erase all of Natlan's culture and history, but even then the net could eventually be corrupted by the Abyss, causing all the sacrifice to go to waste. So Capitano plans to use this ancient dragon relic called the Source Mechanism, which rather than weaving a net can be used to completely reconstruct the ley lines from scratch. Kinda similar to what the Loom of Fate is supposed to be able to do. But according to Mawika, using the Source Mechanism to reconstruct new ley lines would mean sacrificing the existing ones, which makes it no different from using the power of the Gnosis. Now this is where the lore bombs just keep coming. To stop the captain and Oron, we enter an ancient dragon ruin which contains the Source Mechanism. By the time we reach Capitano and Oron, the Source Mechanism already gets started, following which it lets out a loud shriek, causing Oron to go haywire and suddenly switch from being the Batman into the Flash. Even the captain is taken aback by this peculiar behavior of Oron and prevents him from causing any damage, during which we turn off the Source Mechanism. During this time, Oron starts talking in a different voice, addresses Capitano's sense of honor, and even calls him Commander. Oron, who goes through a memory haze at the time, relives his fond memories but then gets interrupted by a certain someone named Guthred. And this Guthred looks familiar because he is from Khaenri'ah. Although Oron heroically escapes from this quagmire, gathers his senses, and even gets acknowledged by his ancient name-bearer, Sanhaj Kompore, the question remains as to why a Khaenri'ah suddenly appeared out of nowhere. And why was this Khaenri'ah calling Capitano Commander? Soon enough we get the answer. Capitano is also from Khaenri'ah. This was my favorite reveal because it laid rest to so many theories about Capitano's real identity. The 4-year-long theory of Capitano being the blood-stained knight? Wrong. Capitano being Mawika's father? Wrong. Capitano being Mawika's sister? Wrong. Capitano being Jabalanque's brother? Wrong. Even my personal theory of Capitano being Tinoch? Wrong. Capitano is a pure-blooded Khaenri'ah who survived the cataclysm and has been cursed with immortality. Given how Capitano was called Commander and how he says he failed to protect Khaenri'ah, and also the fact that he personally knows Dainsleif, makes me wonder if Capitano also belonged to the Royal Guard of Khaenri'ah, just like Dainsleif. Now going back to the Chasm Archon quest, we met Halfdan, who was one of the elite Royal Guards of Khaenri'ah, and this design looks very similar to this Guthred guy we just met. Now Halfdan was said to be under the orders of Dainsleif, who was the then Knight Captain of the Royal Guard of Khaenri'ah. Now interestingly, according to Norse mythology, the first Viking king of the land of Northumbria was called Halfdan, and the second Viking king of the land of Northumbria was called Guthred. So it could be possible that Guthred could also be of the same ranking as Halfdan and subsequently also have been under the command of Dainsleif as well. But since Guthred addressed Capitano as Commander, Capitano could have been the Knight Commander of the Royal Guard of Khaenri'ah, which according to medieval army hierarchy is just above the Knight Captain. Also, given how Capitano casually addresses Dainsleif as Dane, it could indeed be true that Capitano was the Knight Commander of the Royal Guard, just superior to the Knight Captain, Dainsleif. But although both Capitano and Dainsleif were affected by the same curse, unlike Dainsleif, Capitano's physical appearance has changed along with his strength, which is said to be a mere shadow of what it used to be 500 years ago. Capitano also claims that he has no idea on how Dainsleif managed to slow down the deterioration, but from what we learned in Sumeru, it may very well be due to that ring he had in his possession, the long speculated Ring of Nibelung. Before we move on to the other lore bombs, a surefire question would be, does this mean that Capitano is Perrin Heri? Although both are said to be very strong and also have been commanders of the Khaenri'ah army, Perrin Heri belongs to the Crimson Moon dynasty and is an outlander just like the Traveler, whereas Capitano belongs to the Eclipse dynasty. Also, I really doubt Perrin Heri really exists, he could just be a character in that book. When Capitano and Oron had started the source mechanism, a loud shriek was heard which made Oron go haywire. This sound was made by the Lord of the Night, who was awoken from her slumber by the source mechanism. This shriek was something that affects souls, and Oron, having a damaged soul, was affected the most. Apart from Oron, an additional soul was also affected, which was of Guthred, who was part of Capitano's army that came to Natlan, and he tried to occupy the missing part of Oron's soul, which causes the memory haze we saw earlier. Anyways, the Lord of the Night is called Yuhual Tekutin, and she is said to be the entity who created the Night Kingdom in the first place. Now, according to Mesoamerican mythology, Yuhual Tekutin stands for 9 deities who ruled over every 9th night, called Lords of the Night. An interesting thing about these 9 deities is that often the second Lord of the Night is either Tezcatlipoca or another deity called Itly. Funnily enough, Citlali is called Granny Itly and is one of the very few who can communicate with the Wyobs and the Lord of the Night and can even see into the future. The source mechanism was used by the ancient dragons to strengthen the ley lines by imbuing them with power, and though Yahual-Tekutin could use it again to reconstruct new ley lines, this would only occur at the cost of her existence. But this would result in the disappearance of all the rules of Natlan and all the memories and legends recorded in the old ley lines as well, causing the people of Natlan to have memory loss, mental disorders, and cognitive issues. The Lord of the Night also reveals to us that in the ancient past they were known as angels and that their devolved forms are Seelies. This confirms our long-lost suspicion of Seelies being angels, and now their Seelie code designs make so much more sense. It even points to the possibility that Columbina could indeed be an angel or a Seelie, or at least be related to them in some way. Yahual-Tekutin even gives us more info on the shades, particularly the Shade of Death, which is a separate topic in this video, so let's leave that for now. But before we move on to the next part, there is one more thing to discuss. Towards the end of the Archon quest, we can see that Capitano visits the Lord of the Night alone, where he is addressed as the Outlander with deep ties to this land. We know that this is because of how Capitano came to Natlan with a squad and even fought for Natlan alongside the chief of the Masters of Nightwing, Aizu. But what is strange is that Capitano says Natlan has a final battle to fight and that he too has a final foe to face, but for that he needs the Lord of the Night's help. Natlan's final battle is understandable. Mavica invites the traveler also to join her in one final battle into the heart of the Abyss to make sure the Abyss never poses a threat to Natlan ever again. But what or who is Capitano's final foe? Now it would be possible that Capitano too wants to help Mavica and the traveler to fight against the Abyss, but him asking for the Lord of the Night's help makes me wonder if his final foe is actually death. Maybe what Capitano wants is to finally be able to die, but at the same time save Natlan before he does. And since we know that Clothar Alberic, who was inflicted with the same curse as Capitano, was able to die, maybe Capitano could also finally pass away. And for that, what he needs could be the help of the Shade Ronova, the ruler of death. Something even more questionable is how Capitano knows the ruler of death, because the Lord of the Night says the ruler of death sent him on his long journey. Also, it is kind of weird how Capitano came to know of the source mechanism via these three scholars whom Mavica apparently hasn't even heard of. This makes me really question if these three scholars even exist. Maybe the person who told Capitano about the source mechanism could actually be Ronova, the Shade of Death herself. Maybe it could even be possible that the unusual presence that Mavica felt within Capitano during their fight was actually that of Ronova, the ruler of death. Or maybe another implication for this could be that the Kandrian immortality curse was actually the doing of the Shade of Death. Maybe what the Lord of the Night means to say is that it is the effect of this immortality curse that was created by the Shade of Death that led Capitano on his long journey from Kandria all the way to Natlan, and eventually ending up with him sacrificing or maybe even fighting to save Natlan. Now Ronova, or the Shade of Death, is described as an emissary of the heavenly principles who controls the power of death. Under her guidance, the Lord of the Night created the Night Kingdom, and with this she apparently overstepped her authorities as a Shade and displaced the heavenly principles. Now while stating this dialogue, it almost feels as if the Lord of the Night was going to accidentally spill some very important name, maybe something like the Almighty Fanes, or maybe even Almighty Paimon. Anyways, with Ronova's help, Xbalanque created the rules for Natlan, which is the Ode of Resurrection and the Pilgrimage. Now the entire purpose of Mavica's plan to assemble the 6 tribal heroes was in fact to be able to use Ronova's, or the Shade of Death's, power. In this cutscene, we can see Mavica harnessing the power to break through the abyssal portal looming in the sky. But this power was so strong that it even breaks the sky behind the abyssal portal, revealing to us the biggest lore bomb of all time. The fake sky of Teyvat is real. What we can see here feels like a glitch in a simulation, like when you destroy the window panels of a screen to discover what lies behind it. And here what we see is a red-black background, at the center of which is a shattered moon. This is absolutely insane because now we know the skies of Teyvat are fake, just like the Fatui had already suspected. The sun, the moon, the stars, all that we see might probably just be a projection covering what is really out there. The shattered moon could even be the corpse of the moon sister, which was said to hang over Teyvat's sky. Now the colors of this particular glitch reminds me of the unknown god's portals, and this could even confirm that the unknown god would in fact be the shade of space or the shade of void. Now using the power of the shade of death comes at a price, and that price is death. Now this was already foreseen by Citlali, who used the Masters of Nightwind ceremony to foresee the outcome of using the power of the shade of death, and what she saw was the Pyro Archon's death. Now although the power of a descender, the traveler, may be able to change fate, that is when or where it will happen, the ultimate outcome, that is death, cannot be altered. Mavica, whose ancient name was revealed to be Kiongosi, is the inheritor of Xbalanque's will and the leader of Natlan. Although using the power of Ronova has guaranteed her death, her final plan entails launching a counterattack at the Abyss, who has now fled into the depths of the Night Kingdom. If she doesn't do this, the threat of the Abyss that looms Natlan will return once again. The power of the Sacred Flame will protect Mavica from the abyssal corruption, but the Traveler is the only one who can resist it naturally. The ancient name being forged for the Traveler is to act as a guarantee to revive them in case they fall in battle. For this, the Lord of the Night even prepared an extension of a will that would record the Traveler's adventures in Natlan from then on. Before we conclude this video, there are two more important questions to be answered. Number 1. Who is Mavica and the Traveler going to battle in the Night Kingdom? I'm pretty sure many of you already noticed these Abyss Ward thingies as well as the Abyssal Tumors in the final battle. And the description of the Abyssal Tumor says, Mark of Gosaitot. Now although I couldn't find anything on Gosaitot, it is awfully similar to Yog-Sothoth, who is a fictional cosmic god in Cthulhu mythos that is said to occupy all time and space. So I wonder if this Gosaitot could be some weird abyssal creature who is going to be the final boss of Natlan in 5.2 or 5.3. Number 2, if the Traveler's ancient name records their adventures in Natlan, then what happens to the Traveler's descender status? Aren't descenders supposed to be people with no info recorded in Teyvat? How would creating an ancient name affect all that? Now, honestly, I don't have any ideas on this, but I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys do. So let me know those ideas down in the comments below, along with what you thought of the Natlan Archon Quest in 5.1. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.